China is one nation that stands out when it comes to global power, casting a shadow that stretches from ancient dynasties to modern metropolises. Should other countries be afraid of China's rise in dominance? And will China surpass the United States and become the world's financial capital within the next 10 years? Join us while we explore the end of the Western world and the birth of a new global order. With a GDP soaring past $17.8 trillion, a military modernizing at breakneck speed, and a 5,000-year history of strategic brilliance, China isn't just a player, it's rewriting the global game. Combine that with a web of influence and tentacles spun across Asia, Africa, and beyond, and you get a nation that makes the world sit up and take notice. Did you know that China is the fourth largest country in the world by land area, covering approximately 9.6 million square kilometers, or 3.7 million square miles? It's just behind the United States, which is 9.83 million square kilometers, or 3.8 million square miles, and just ahead of Brazil, which is 8.5 million square kilometers, or 3.28 million square miles. China's rise will not only shift economic power, but also fundamentally alter the political, cultural, and ideological landscape of the world. But what if someone dared to challenge China's rise? Well, it might be the last move they ever make. From its ancient emperors to its 21st century ambitions, China is a beast of a nation. So before we jump into the 10 reasons why everyone is afraid of China, let's take a little journey and discover 3 almost impossible to believe man-made creations of this incredible country. Firstly, the Great Wall of China, a monumental feat stretching over 21,196 kilometers. It is one of the most iconic structures in human history. Built primarily during the Qin Dynasty from 221 to 206 BC, and the Ming Dynasty between 1368 and 1644, it was designed to protect Chinese states from nomadic invaders, particularly the Mongols. 21,000 kilometers is a distance equivalent to slightly over half the Earth's circumference, or the distance between Santiago, Chile, and Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, or the distance from French Polynesia, a French overseas territory in the Pacific, to Eritrea on the Horn of Africa. The second man-made creation is the Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974 by farmers in Xi'an, Shanxi province. The Terracotta Army is a breathtaking archaeological find from the Qin Dynasty of 221 to 206 BC. This collection of over 8,000 life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots was buried to protect Emperor Qin Shi Huang in the afterlife. Each figure is unique, with distinct facial expressions, hairstyles, and armor, reflecting meticulous craftsmanship. The army, part of a vast necropolis, was buried in battle formation across 3 main pits, alongside weapons like bronze swords and crossbows. And finally, the Forbidden City in Beijing, built between 1406 and 1420 during the Ming Dynasty. It is the world's largest imperial palace complex, spanning 72 hectares, home to 24 emperors over 5 centuries. It was the political and ceremonial center of China until 1912. Its 980 buildings, with golden tiled roofs and intricate woodwork, reflect feng shui principles and imperial grandeur. The complex, surrounded by a 10-meter-high wall and moat, was forbidden to commoners, symbolizing the emperor's divine mandate. Now you understand a few unreal facts about China's history, their design and ingenuity, construction prowess, and advanced industrialization. So let's jump into 10 reasons why everyone is afraid of the rise of China. Reason number 1, the weight of history. China's story begins over 5,000 years ago with the Xia Dynasty, a civilization so advanced it was writing on oracle bones, while others were still figuring out fire. Chinese culture is among the oldest continuous cultures in the world, with a history spanning over 5,000 years, rooted in the Neolithic period of Yangshao and Longshan cultures, roughly 5,000 to 2000 BC, or before Christ. Its culture was more formalized through early dynasties like the Xia Dynasty, dating from 2070 to 1600 BC, the Shang Dynasty dating from 1600 to 1046 BC, and the Zhou Dynasty extending from 1046 to 256 BC. This longevity is based on archaeological evidence, written records, and continuous cultural practices like Confucianism in Chinese script. I hear you asking, but how old is the Chinese culture compared to others? Well, the ancient Egyptian culture dates back to around 3100 BC with the unification under Menes, making it roughly contemporary with early Chinese culture, although its continuity was disrupted by invasions and colonial periods. India, or the Indus Valley Civilization, dating from 3300 to 1300 BC, marks the start of Indian cultural roots. It is slightly older than China's earliest records, but India's cultural continuity was shaped later through Vedic traditions around 1500 BC. The oldest culture is likely Mesopotamia, known these days as Iraq. The Sumerian culture, dating 4500 to 1900 BC, is older than China's by about a millennium. They contributed early city-states and cuneiform writing, but its continuity was fractured by conquests. The real reason that China's culture stands out is because of its unbroken continuity, with consistent language, philosophy, and traditions enduring through dynastic changes. Most other ancient cultures, like the Egyptian and Mesopotamian, faced disruptions that fragmented their continuity. While Indian culture rivals China's in age, it was shaped by later cultural syntheses. China's cultural lineage is among the longest and most continuous, which makes it a force to be reckoned with. Let's fast forward to the Qin Dynasty, where Emperor Qin Shi Huang unified the nation in 221 BC, standardizing everything from script to wheel sizes. Perhaps this is where the control and authoritarianism in Chinese culture really began. His Terracotta army, 8,000 strong, still guards his tomb, a reminder of China's knack for thinking big. The Han Dynasty opened the Silk Road, connecting east to west, while the Tang Dynasty turned Chang'an into the world's cultural capital, hosting traders from Persia to Rome. By the Ming Dynasty, Admiral Zheng He was sailing to Africa long before Columbus got lost in the Caribbean. Compare that to Europe's fragmented kingdoms at the time. China was playing 4D chess while others were stuck on checkers. This historical depth fuels China's confidence today, a nation that sees itself as the Middle Kingdom, destined to lead. Should we be messing with a country that's been planning for millennia? Well, good luck to anyone who tries. But that's just the past. Wait until you see and hear about what China's been plotting for centuries. Reason number 2, the long game, China's strategic vision. China doesn't think in election cycles, it plans in centuries. While there's no literal 500-year plan, the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year strategy, aiming for global leadership by 2049, is no less terrifying. Xi Jinping has been in power since November 2012, when he became the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, making him China's paramount leader. He assumed the presidency of the People's Republic of China in March 2013. His leadership was extended with a third term as president in March 2023, following the abolition of presidential term limits in 2018. The Chinese Communist Party has been in power since October 1, 1949, when it officially established the People's Republic of China after winning the Chinese Civil War. As of today, the Chinese Communist Party has been in power for almost 76 years, marking its continuous rule over mainland China and making it one of the longest ruling political parties in modern history. Now you understand why President Xi Jinping's Chinese dream of national rejuvenation builds on decades of calculated moves. Since Deng Xiaoping's reforms in the 1980s, China's economy skyrocketed from $90 billion to over $17.8 trillion in 2023, outpacing Japan since 2010. China's GDP is second only to the United States at a staggering $27.4 trillion. China represents about 17.65% of the global economy, and it's only predicted to get bigger and become more and more dominant. China's political and economic outlook is a complex blend of authoritarian governance and market-driven economics, often described as socialism with Chinese characteristics. It combines elements of communism and capitalism under tight state control, creating a unique system that defies simple categorization. But China's strategic vision doesn't end there. The Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, connects 65 countries with $23 trillion in GDP. weaving a global network of ports, railways, and power plants. Compare that to the US's Marshall Plan, which rebuilt Europe with only a fraction of the scope. China's playing risk while others are still learning the rules. With goals to dominate artificial intelligence, 5G, and green tech by 2035, China's long-term strategy is a global wake-up call. But strategy's only half the game. Now let's talk about the muscle backing it up. Reason number 3, the People's Liberation Army. Ever wondered what the size of a country's military must be to protect 1.4 billion people? Well, China's military, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, is a force to be reckoned with over 2 million active personnel, which is roughly the same population as Iceland, Malta, Luxembourg, and Montenegro combined. China's ground forces are massive. The People's Liberation Army's Type 99A tank, with its 125mm smoothbore gun and laser defense system, rivals the US's M1 Abrams, with over 1,200 in service. But it's not just tanks. China's hypersonic missiles, like the DF-21D carrier killer, can strike ships 1,800 miles away, making naval commanders sweat. In 2025 alone, the People's Liberation Army conducted 311 air incursions near Taiwan, flexing its muscle with J-20 stealth fighters. Compare that to Russia's Su-57, which has seen limited combat to date. From the deserts of Xinjiang to the South China Sea, the People's Liberation Army's modernization, backed by a $296 billion defense budget, signals one thing: China's ready for war. Poke this dragon and you'll feel the fire. But China's power isn't just on land. They are also a formidable force in the oceans. Reason number 4, the naval juggernaut. China's Navy, the largest in the world by ship count, boasts over 370 vessels, dwarfing the US's 300, and is also closing the gap in its naval attack capability. Its 3 aircraft carriers, including the Fujian with electromagnetic launch systems, will perhaps in the future even challenge America's fleet of 11 aircraft carriers. While the United States Navy has fewer ships than the People's Liberation Army Navy, it maintains a significant advantage in tonnage. It has 4.5 million tons compared to China's 2 million tons, and has advanced technology particularly in aircraft carriers and nuclear-powered submarines. In 2025, China's Navy patrolled the South China Sea, asserting control over disputed reefs and spooking neighbors like Vietnam. The Liaoning carrier's 2024 exercises near Taiwan sent shockwaves, while China's 60 submarines, including nuclear-powered Shang-class, prowl silently. Compare that to India's 16 subs. China's underwater game is unmatched in Asia. The Djibouti base, established in 2017, gives China a foothold in Africa, projecting power across the Indian Ocean. When a Chinese carrier strike group sails your way, it's not just a ship, it's a statement. But China is not just muscle, it's got brains too. Reason number 5, China's technological dominance. Should the United States and other Western nations be concerned with China challenging their historical technological dominance? Through deliberate state-led strategies, long-term policy planning, and substantial investments, China's tech prowess and ascendancy are now a global formidable force. Exemplified by initiatives like Made in China 2025 and China Standards 2035, these strategies aim to reduce reliance on foreign technology and establish China as a global leader in high-tech industries. But how successful are they really? China leads in 37 of 44 critical technologies, including artificial intelligence, quantum technology, electric batteries, and hypersonics. The Chinese Academy of Sciences ranks first or second in most of these fields. It leads in 5G, with Huawei's networks in 170 countries, outpacing its US competitors. The Beidou satellite system, rivaling GPS, guides everything from missiles to delivery drones, and has companies such as DJI, which controls 85% of the global civilian drone market. In quantum communications, China boasts the world's largest quantum communication network, spanning 12,000 kilometers. That's roughly the same distance as Beijing to Cape Town, South Africa, or the distance from Beijing to the southern tip of Argentina, near Ushuaia in Tierra del Fuego. China's technological edge is underpinned by significant government spending, with approximately $15 billion in quantum technology alone and $140 billion in AI, aiming to dominate these industries by the year 2030. And with a talent pool of over 5 million research and development personnel, it is the largest globally, equaling the populations of small countries like Singapore and New Zealand. China leverages knowledge transfer, with 1/5 of its top researchers trained in Five Eyes countries. However, critics argue that China's lead in research output does not always translate to innovation quality, as it often replicates existing Western technologies rather than pioneering groundbreaking advancements. And let's not forget the Great Firewall and how China controls information like no other. It makes you think that just maybe we are only seeing half the picture. Geopolitically, China's technological rise poses challenges. Its Digital Silk Road initiative exports technologies like 5G and AI, which raise concerns about techno-authoritarianism, potentially enabling state surveillance. So is China redefining technological and economic power dynamics in the coming decades? We'll let you decide that one. Before we get too far ahead, let's remind ourselves of China's architectural prowess. China is not a typical nation-state, but a civilization state, a concept rooted in a 5,000-year history and cultural continuity. China's identity is tied to its ancient civilization, a sense of cultural superiority, and a unified polity that has persisted for over 2 millennia. Its ancient civilization still remains strong through some of its man-made structures, like the Jinghong Grand Canal, which is the longest and oldest man-made waterway in the world. The Grand Canal stretches 1,776 kilometers from Beijing in the north to Hangzhou in Zhejiang province in the south. Construction began in the 5th century BC, with major expansions during the Xia Dynasty from years 581 to 618. It linked the Yellow and Yangtze rivers, facilitating trade and cultural exchange. It connected China's political north with its economic south. Cities like Suzhou and Yangzhou flourished as canal hubs, fostering commerce and art. Built to transport grain, soldiers, and goods, it also spread ideas of Buddhism and Confucianism. The canal's engineering, including locks to manage elevation changes, was revolutionary for its time. Over centuries, it was expanded and maintained, with the Yuan Dynasty from 1271 to 1368, rerouting it to Beijing. Today, sections are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The canal's banks feature historic temples, pagodas, and bridges, reflecting its cultural significance. The Grand Canal symbolizes China's historical ingenuity in infrastructure and its ability to unify diverse regions, remaining a vital artery in the nation's economic and cultural history. China is also home to the Potala Palace, Tibet's spiritual fortress. Situated in Lhasa, Tibet, perched at 3,700 meters, it is a masterpiece of Tibetan architecture. Built in the 7th century on the site of an earlier fortress by King Songtsen Gampo for his Chinese wife, Princess Wencheng, and expanded by the 5th Dalai Lama in the 17th century. It served as the Dalai Lama's residence and Tibet's political center until 1959. Its white and red palaces have over 1,000 rooms, 10,000 shrines, and approximately 200,000 statues. The complex, built on 13 layers, houses Buddhist relics, including 698 murals, 10,000 painted scrolls, and tombs of past Dalai Lamas. Constructed on a steep hill, it blends with the Himalayan landscape, using stone, wood, and mud bricks to withstand harsh conditions. The palace's design reflects Tibetan Buddhist cosmology, with sacred spaces aligned for spiritual harmony. Potala's history reflects Tibet's complex relationship with China, especially post-1950 annexation. Its enduring spiritual significance and architectural grandeur make it a symbol of Tibetan identity and resilience, offering a window into the region's unique cultural and geographic landscape. Now, let's return to Reason 6 and talk about China's global influence. Reason number 6, the Belt and Road Empire. Did you know that the ancient Silk Road spanned about 6,400 kilometers, or 4,000 miles, across deserts, mountains, and grasslands? China's Belt and Road Initiative is a modern Silk Road, but with higher stakes. As tensions continue to build in the Middle East, with a potential impact on world trade and energy supplies, the media has unreported the completion of the China-Iran railway link, which is a significant milestone in China's Belt and Road Initiative. Specifically, in recent times, China has been re-establishing and reviving the ancient Silk Road with modern infrastructure. One very important reason being is that China buys 80% of Iran's oil. Did you know the ancient city of Antioch, a port city in Syria, was strategic throughout history? Antioch became so wealthy because it served as a key link to the Silk Road, where all goods entered the Greek and Roman world. Purple was associated with a Roman emperor because it was a dye from Asia that arrived via Antioch. It was decreed that only the emperor could wear it. The modern China-Iran railway link is part of the broader China Central Asia-West Economic Corridor, and it primarily relies on the Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran railways as critical connectors. This freight train route from China to Iran covers a distance of approximately 10,400 kilometers, or 6,500 miles, and takes about 15 days to travel. So if Iran shuts down the Straits of Hormuz, which some might suggest, the export of oil to China will remain unaffected due to the KTI railway. The Eurasian Rail Network provides China with a crucial overland route to access Middle Eastern markets and resources, reducing dependence on vulnerable sea lanes like the Strait of Malacca. It also offers Iran a vital alternative trade corridor, mitigating the impact of Western sanctions and reducing its isolation. Construction began on the KTI railway in December 2014, and the first direct freight train from China to Iran arrived in Tehran on February 15, 2016. Trains now run regularly from various Chinese cities like Yiwu and Xi'an through to Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and terminating in Tehran. China exports electronics, machinery, textiles, and industrial goods. Iran exports petrochemicals, minerals, and agricultural products like saffron and pistachios. With ports and pipelines from Djibouti to Greece, China's weaving a global web that you don't want to get tangled in. But it's not just Middle Eastern economics. China's got Africa in its sight too. Reason number 7. China's African Gambit. So is China strong-arming African nations through its financial and geopolitical enforcement? Since 2009, China's been Africa's top trading partner, with trade hitting $295.6 billion in 2024. Africa's largest economy, South Africa, situated at the tip of Africa, is not only on a strategic shipping route, but it is also a major supplier of raw materials. South Africa has a trade volume of $52.4 billion with key minerals and metals exports to China, including iron ore, chromium, and platinum. The Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, situated in Midwest Africa, exports critical minerals such as cobalt worth $21.9 billion to China alone. The DRC has 80% of the world's cobalt supply, with Chinese companies controlling 80% of its output through agreements like the Sino-Congolese des Mines deal. Nigeria, which is Africa's most populous country, with an estimated population of over 230 million people, has a trade volume of $21 billion with China. Its key exports are petroleum gas, crude petroleum, aluminium, and niobium, vanadium, and zinc ore. Africa is no slouch on the world stage, with China securing many of their critical minerals to fund its steamroller of an economy and future world-conquering plans. The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation pledges $60 billion every 3 years, building roads and hospitals, but also to command influence on the African continent. Critics call it a debt trap diplomacy, although China insists it's a win-win. Its Djibouti base, opened in 2017, sits near key shipping lanes, keeping an eye on local U.S. bases. Africa's definitely in China's orbit and no one dares to interfere. But it's not just its African footprint. China's culture commands huge respect. Reason number 8. China's cultural powerhouse. China's 5,000-year culture is a soft power juggernaut. But how does China maintain its deep-rooted culture? 92% of China's population identifies as Han Chinese. fostering a sense of racial and cultural homogeneity that contrasts the multiculturalism of nations like the United States, India, or Brazil. This perception of racial unity, though empirically questionable given China's ethnic diversity, reinforces a sense of cultural superiority and cohesion. Taoism and Confucianism are foundational to Chinese thoughts and morals, with origins tracing back to the 6th century BC for Taoism and the 5th century BC for Confucianism. The Taoism system emphasizes and influences living in harmony with nature, while Confucianism maintains social order through moral values and hierarchy. Their influence extends to ethics, governance, and family life. With about 25% or 350 million people of the Chinese population still practicing these traditions. Chinese Taoism and Confucianism principles are to this day evident in educational curricula, social etiquette, and even modern policymaking, reflecting their enduring legacy. If you take a look at traditional Chinese medicine, it has a history spanning over 2,000 years, with its foundations in texts like the Huangdi Neijing from around 200 BC. Traditional Chinese medicine emphasizes holistic health, focusing on balancing the body's energy, or qi, through practices such as herbal remedies, acupuncture, cupping, and tai chi. In China, Chinese medicine remains a vital part of healthcare, with clinics and hospitals offering these services alongside Western medicine. The global health landscape increasingly recognizes traditional Chinese medicine's efficacy, with the market for herbal remedies expanding. From calligraphy, Tang poetry, and Ming novels to K-pop-inspired C-pop, China's cultural exports are a global force. If you think you've underestimated their charm, well, you are probably already hooked and don't even know it. Now, as we move on to our penultimate reason, let's agree that any discussion about China would be incomplete without the big T word. Reason number 9, the Taiwan ticking time bomb. Taiwan, the island China claims as its own, is a global talking point. But it is more complicated than we realize. The split between China and Taiwan stems from the Chinese Civil War from 1927 to 1949 between the nationalist Kuomintang Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. After Japan's World War II defeat in 1945, Taiwan, which had been under Japanese rule since 1895, was returned to the Republic of China under the nationalist Kuomintang Party. After the Communists won the Civil War in 1949, they established the People's Republic of China on October 1, 1949, on China's mainland. The nationalist Kuomintang then fled to Taiwan, establishing Taipei as its temporary capital, and formed the Republic of China government in exile, claiming to be the legitimate government of all China. The People's Republic of China, meanwhile, claims Taiwan as its territory under the One China principle, and viewing Taiwan as a breakaway province. Since the 1949 split, China has vowed reunification and by force if needed. In 2025, 311 People's Liberation Army aircraft buzzed in Taiwan's airspace, with 22 crossing the median line in one day. China's Shuiqiao barges signal invasion preparation. Meanwhile, Taiwan's 3% GDP defense boost and U.S. arms sales are raising the stakes. The Taiwanese President Lai's defiance does not conjure peace after calling China a hostile force when Beijing threatened with decisive measures. The Taiwan conflict could drag in the US, Japan, and beyond. Any misstep here, and we could be staring down the barrel of a gun into World War III. We have now arrived at our final reason, number 10, and it's enough to keep anyone up at night. Reason number 10, the Chinese government's authoritarianism. Ever wondered what it's like to live in a Black Mirror episode? Well, China might be just the place to experience it. The Chinese government's authoritarianism is characterized by centralized control, pervasive surveillance, and strict regulation of individual freedoms, designed to maintain the Communist Party's dominance. Their system shapes nearly every aspect of citizens' lives, from information access to economic behavior. Through sophisticated mechanisms like censorship, social credit systems, and digital currency adoption. But what is it like to have your information sources controlled? The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, tightly controls information flow to shape public perception and suppress dissent. The Great Firewall blocks foreign websites, including Google, Wikipedia, and major social media platforms, restricting access to unfiltered information. State media dominates narratives, promoting CCP ideology. Domestic platforms like WeChat and Weibo are heavily monitored, with algorithms and human censors removing content deemed politically sensitive, with citizens facing punishment for posting critical views. And have you ever wondered what a social credit system is? Well, the Chinese social credit system, introduced in 2014, monitors and evaluates citizens' behavior to enforce compliance. It assigns scores based on financial, social, and legal conduct. It's tracked via vast surveillance networks, including 600 million CCTV cameras equipped with facial recognition. Positive actions like paying debts or volunteering boost scores, while infractions like jaywalking, criticizing the government, or associating with untrustworthy individuals lower them. Low scores can restrict access to travel, education, or jobs, and the use of digital currency enables the state to enforce financial sanctions on individuals, such as freezing accounts of dissidents. Dissent is curtailed through imprisonment, forced disappearances, or re-education camps. Political participation is non-existent outside the CCP, with elections tightly controlled. And public protests are rare and swiftly suppressed. So, as we conclude this video, is China perfect or invincible? Absolutely not. And there are cracks beginning to show. However, that's a topic we'll have to explore in a whole other video. Now, we hope you loved this dive into Chinese geopolitics, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Please also consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference and means the world to us. Thanks again, stay curious, and we'll see you next time on Earth Mapped Out.